Are we live? Because I think we're live. I'm just going to stand here for a minute until I see a few more people come in. Hi there. How's everybody doing tonight? I can't hear you. So this is sort of a limited experiment in one-way communication. Well, nice to see you all. I also can't see you, so that's really just as ineffective of saying, how are you doing? I'm just going to be testing out the new fancy microphone here. Hopefully this whole rig will work out nicely. If you've just tuned in, I'm just waiting a second here until a few more people tune in. Give us just a few seconds. And I'm just going to try to make sure that I can see what's happening in the comments section. Thanks, Teresa. Okay. Well, hi Marisa. How are you? I suppose I'll just wait a few more seconds here and then get going. I love this microphone. This thing is absolutely fantastic. It's this omnidirectional microphone, very, very good for podcasting, and hopefully very good for these purposes here. Hi, Jen. All right. Well, I think I'm going to officially get started. It's been 3 minutes. So, hello everybody, and welcome to the virtual Vinstitute number 3, explicitly in conjunction between the Vinstitute Wine School, that's me, and Oliver Osoyoos Wine Country. This is, of course, if this is the first time that you've tuned in, this is a live tasting series that we do where we explore the various wines of Oliver and Osoyoos in the heart of wine country in British Columbia. We taste through everything that there is to offer in this beautiful valley of ours. And we also explore different topics in wine. If you haven't looked at the other live streams, they are saved right on our Facebook page. You can watch number 1, where we talked about the fundamental differences between white wines and red wines. You can watch number 2, where we talked about rosé wines. And tonight we're going to talk about a very fun and very interesting topic in wine, which is, of course, oak, the almost omnipresent topic of oak. It's actually something that there's so much to say about that I've already done an episode of our Uncork the Sun podcast explicitly on oak. And yet I can do an episode of the podcast and an episode of the live tasting and really not cross over much at all, because there's just so much content there to explore. Oak is, not to put too fine a point on it, oak is a necessary and synonymous aspect of wine. I say synonymous because oak barrels and winemaking are almost entirely equated with each other. It is one of the most iconic images of wine creation. When we think about wine and winemaking, we think about barrel cellars. We think about this, right? We think about oak barrels stacked up in caves. We think about winemakers with their little wine thieves kind of testing from oak barrels. Look, this is just oak. It's everywhere. This wall is made out of wine barrel staves. You cannot escape from it. And so it's a very good topic for us to discuss. But what's really interesting is the wines that I have today that I'm going to taste with you. First, I'm going to talk about oak just a little bit. If you want to learn more, you can go listen to the episode of the podcast where I get into more detail. But most of this episode is going to be this episode, this live tasting, is going to be about tasting these wines. And it's really, I think, quite fascinating, the choices that we have made. So I'm just going to hold these up right here so that everybody can see them. The first wine we're going to taste tonight is a Chardonnay. And what a surprise is that, right? If I say we're going to talk about oak, of course I'm going to be tasting a Chardonnay, right? But this is a Chardonnay that does not have any oak. Oh, there you go. Get the tilt. This is from Red Horse's Vineyard, which many of you might not have heard of before, because Red Horse's is so brand new it almost doesn't exist yet. Technically, their tasting bar hasn't opened, but they have been producing wine, and their wine is quite delicious. I thought this was a really good choice of something to feature tonight, because it is an unoaked Chardonnay from a winery that maybe you would not be familiar with. In fact, almost inevitably you wouldn't be familiar with yet. 2019 Chardonnay unoaked. Now, the second wine that we're going to try is from a more familiar vineyard. This is from, it's really hard to figure out the angle there. This is from Oliver Twist, which is an old favorite here in the Oliver region. If you've been visiting the valley for the last decade, I'm sure that you're familiar with Oliver Twist. And this Chardonnay right here, if you're familiar with Oliver Twist, you might also recognize that this is also an unoaked Chardonnay, a Chardonnay with no oak to it. This is their 2018 unoaked Chard. And then, ooh, this is fun. What's this? What could be in this fascinating little package? Is it wine? Let's find out. Here, I'll hold it close to the mic so that you can get some ASMR. All right. You like that crinkle? It's like Christmas. Oh, it's wine. That's a good sign. This is a bottle of 2014 Chardonnay from the one, the only, the beautiful CheckMate. This is from CheckMate Artisanal Winery, and this is their 2014 Fool's Mate Chardonnay. Now, CheckMate, of course, makes I think 8 different Chardonnays, and so this is just one of many. But this is an absolutely magnificent wine. This is oaked. This is definitively, absolutely oaked. And so it stands in a real interesting contrast to the other 2 Chards that we're going to taste today. Finally, the last wine that we're going to try today is from another old favorite, Moon Cursor. This is the Moon Cursor. Let me get my fingers out of the way there. This is the Dolcetto, the 2019 Dolcetto. And if you are not familiar with this wine, you might be surprised to hear that it is a red wine, but that it has not been oaked. This is an unoaked red. Very few and far between they are, but this right here is almost as perfect an example as I can find. And so, today, to talk about oak barrels, get my angle there, to talk about oak barrels, we are going to taste 4 wines, and 3 of them have no wine. So sorry, no, they have lots of wine. I just got distracted by the note. I'll turn this microphone so that I'm not as quiet when I'm over here by the camera. I hope that's a little bit better. What I mean to say is that we have 4 wines to talk about today, and in order to talk about the effect of oak, 3 of these have no oak. You might say, Moss, why would you choose unoaked wine if you want to talk about oak? That's madness. You're mad. And to that, I would respond that you know what oak tastes like. You know what oak tastes like because, back to what I was saying at the very beginning of the program, oak is synonymous with wine. How many unoaked red wines have you ever tried? I'm guessing that you can probably count it on one hand, unless you are a fan of this specific Dolcetto grape in its Italian form. But most BC consumers would only have limited experience with unoaked reds. And so when you think about the way that a red wine tastes, what you're actually What you're actually taking in there is a combination of red wine and oak. Let me get to the whiteboard. Yahoo! I wish that I had like a little theme song, like a musical cue for kind of, let's all go to the whiteboard. All right, so when you are making red wine, we've already talked about this. In fact, I've drawn this diagram now two different live streams in a row. So I'll just make it brief. When you're making red wine, you harvest your grapes, you crush them down, and you put the juice into stainless steel tanks just for long enough to macerate with the skins, absorb color, absorb tannin, absorb texture, and then you take that juice and you put it into oak barrels. This is almost a necessity for the creation of red wine. This is almost universal. And what happens when the wine is in oak is it receives three things. There are three different benefits to putting a wine into oak barrels. The first thing that you receive from putting a wine into oak is flavor. This is the obvious one. This is what people know. Some people love the taste of oaked wines. Some people really adore the taste of an oaked wine, and some people cannot stand it. It's the most polarizing aspect of oak. What does it taste like? Well, if I had to put a fine point on it, oak tends to carry with it a bit of sweetness. There are basically sugars within the grains of wood. And when an oak barrel is being produced, the producer, the cooper, is what you call a barrel producer. They will take all the oak staves. They'll take the oak staves and they'll toast them. They'll char the inside. And sometimes it's just a light browning. Sometimes it's heavy, just blackening it. And what that does is it, adds a little bit of a toastiness to the wine. You get a bit of a smokiness coming forward. But it also caramelizes the sugars within the grain of the wood, which unleashes a bit of sweetness. And it's a very particular sort of sweetness. It's that kind of toasty caramel sweetness. Makes sense, right? And so wines that have been put into oak barrels can taste a little bit like toffee. They can taste a little bit like butterscotch. They can taste like creme brulee. Or they can taste a little bit like vanilla. They also tend to have that little bit of, as I said, toastiness. Sometimes it's actually smoky if you do a heavy blackening on the inside. Or if you're a little bit lighter, if you're a little bit more subtle, it might just come across as maybe a breadiness, a sort of a light, kind of a crisp, flaky, almost like a pastry toastiness. The other thing that you can get in terms of flavor is spice. You can get things like cinnamon, nutmeg, cloves, basically your baking spices. Think about like your woodsy spices. A cinnamon stick, right, and an oak stave are really not that dissimilar when they come down to flavor. So, when we soak wine inside of oak barrels, we are extracting the flavor of the wood and we are putting it into the wine. And this is obviously very deliberate. We're doing this on purpose and we're very carefully choosing barrels that are going to have the intensity of flavor that we want. We're not always going to use brand new barrels that have a lot of flavor. No. The most valuable tool in a winemaker's kit is the ability to select barrels. You will put wine into, say, 50 different barrels, and then you will carefully select exactly which of those barrels taste perfect when mixed together. You'll have a combination of brand new oak barrels that are very flavorful, and then you'll have some muted, older oak barrels that are a little bit more subtle with their taste. And then you'll blend those together to get something that really kind of hits the spot that you're looking for. Not too toasty, but also not too subtle. And that is entirely up to the winemaker. And that's really that is one of the ways that you can really see the personal expression of a winemaker and the specific flair of a winery. You would think that more Chardonnays would taste identical to each other. and yet there is so much diversity. I chose these 3 Chardonnays to come onto this program today, but there were 40 other options that I could have chosen from just within the wineries in Oliver and Osoyoos, and all of them are magnificent in their own ways because they're all very particular. So, you get flavor. The second thing that you get is tannin. We've talked about tannins in the other classes. And what tannin is it's basically that dry texture. You absorb tannin from the grains of the wood. And one of the reasons why it's important for red wines is because the tannin helps bulk it up. It helps fill out the wine. It gives it sturdiness. It gives it structure. But the third thing that you get from an oak barrel is air. It's oxygen. I'm just going to put O2 right here. You get air because these things they're porous, they're soft, they're organic, and so a little bit of air gets in, it breathes, and that's important because tannin on its own can be kind of raw and nasty. It can be rough, it can be raggedy, but when you expose tannin to oxygen, it softens it up. And so there's a very critical ratio in terms of how much tannin you're getting into the wine to also how much air you're getting to break it down and make the wines more palatable. So it is a very specific balance, and there's a reason why oak barrels are so important in winemaking. It's because they hit this mark so perfectly, being able to put tannins into the wine and then being able to soften them up with the oxygen. You can take a stainless steel tank and dump in powdered tannin into your juice to enhance the tannin, but you're not going to oxidize it in the same way. Likewise, you can use a micro-ox system to pump bubbles into your wine and oxidize it, but that's not going to give tannin. This is just a nice, natural, organic balance. So, all of this I am explaining just to set up the idea that, without even really necessarily knowing it, you do understand what oak tastes like. And I am sure that everybody watching this has tried innumerable red wines that have had oak, and they haven't even really necessarily thought about how the oak informs the flavor. We're going to talk about that more when we get to the Dolcetto as the last item. But to begin with, I want to talk about Chardonnay. Chardonnay is for some the perfect wine, and for unfortunately many others, just the last wine that they want to try. And oftentimes that's because people are accustomed to a specific style of Chardonnay that is not necessarily representative of the whole. There was a real trend back in the 70s in particular, coming from the United States, to have very heavily oaked Chardonnays that were using American oak barrels, which are punchier and more aggressive and a little more intense than French oak barrels. And those American oak Chardonnays could be very, very, they're potent, they're flavorful, and very, very oaky, right? I don't even like to use the word oaky because I think of it as pejorative. But in this case, I use it because them some oaky wines you gettin'. But that is not necessarily what every Chardonnay tastes like. And that's why I want to start off with the Red Horses. We're going to begin tasting with the Red Horses Vineyard because this is so radically unlike your heavily oaked American Chardonnay. And again, I don't want to throw the United States under the bus here, but it just so happens that they happen to have oak trees that are very aggressive in their flavor, and that was the style for quite some time. So, Red Horses Vineyard, like I said, these folks are brand new. I met with Eileen the other day. She is the owner, and they have just a little 4-acre vineyard down on their property. It's by Tucklenuit Lake in Oliver, and it was planted by her father-in-law. Planted by her father-in-law. This little vineyard, and it's a family-run operation. I met with her and her son. Her son is doing one of the winemaking programs up at Okanagan College. Actually, both of her children, both of her sons, are learning about winemaking and viticulture right now, so that they can help out in the family vineyard, which is very cool. It's nice to see these small family-run operations, very genuine, very earnest, and they have some fantastic, gigantic horse statues, which are real sort of eye catchers. So once they open their tasting room, it's going to be a destination, absolutely. Now, they specialize in Cab Sauv, and I just want to point that out before we taste this. In fact, I have a bottle of their Cab Sauv right here, their 2017. So Cab Sauv is their specialty, and Cab Sauv, these ones, most definitely have oak. And so if you like Cab Sauv, it's really going to be worth checking out their vineyard. The Chardonnay that they make is their only white wine. And so I wanted to bring it in because it really nicely complements the other wines right here. But don't necessarily go looking for exclusively whites there. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's Cab Sauv and Cab Sauv blend, lots of cabs. Because they are very, very new, it means that that you can't necessarily go directly there to the winery. Their website is still kind of under construction. It's being built. It's launching right now. But the best way to get a hold of them is to just give them a phone call, and you can order the wine direct from them. So, this does not smell like your ordinary Chardonnay, does it? If you're tasting along with me right here, a lot of people expect to smell the oak right away when they're tasting Chard. And this is clean, this is bright. I get very delicate tropical fruit. It's a little bit like sort of mango, peach. But like I said, it's delicate, it's clean, it's very, very crisp. Now, I have this just sitting out in my barrel cellar classroom right here. So it's probably about 15, 16 degrees Celsius right here. But you could chill this down even more. A lot of traditional oak Chardonnays you want to have a little bit warmer, because then the oak sort of exerts itself a little bit more. You're able to pull out more of those aromatics. But when you don't oak a wine, this is really important. When you do not oak a wine, you can afford to chill it down cooler. We talked about this in our rosé session, about how one of the valuable things about these unoaked wines is that you can chill them without compromising the flavor. And so this right here, you can get it cooler to make it even fresher and even cleaner. I have it, as I said, about 15, 16 degrees because I wanna get the smell as much as possible. And it smells great. It just smells really delightful. It's light and fresh and clean. And now I'm gonna taste it. I'm going to remind you, if you're very eagerly waiting to taste, but you're waiting for me to taste first and guide you in it, which is very, very, very kind of you. I will remind you that the very first taste you take of any wine is not representative. It's a primer coat. It's going to get in there. It's going to coat your mouth. It's going to prepare you to actually taste the flavor, which you're then going to get on the second taste or on the third taste. But that first taste, it's really just rinsing the coffee and the bacon and the whatnots, the kebabs, which is what I just had for dinner. So taste number one. Want to move it around a little bit. If you're doing a primer coat, you may as well actually coat your mouth, right? You want it to go up and down and all around. You want it to get all over your mouth. And what's the takeaway from that very first taste? It's that crisp, bright acidity, right? Chardonnay is not a high acid grape, but Chardonnay is a versatile grape, which means that even though it is not by default high acid, it can be encouraged into higher acid positions. And it can be grown in just about any climate. It can be grown in cool climates where it naturally develops a little bit more acid because it doesn't ripen as much, or it can be grown in really hot climates where it develops more sweetness, more sugar. This Chardonnay is actually from the Osoyoos area, and so it's from a hot place. Now, it's 2019, and 2019 was a slightly cooler year overall than our average. But nevertheless, the crispness of the acidity right here, it's definitely citric acid for me. There's different types of acid. There's malic acid and lactic acid and citric acid. And a lot of people, when you're tasting Chardonnay, will be used to lactic acid, which is a specific kind of creamy acidity that tends to go with the oaked Chardonnays. This right here, this is citric acid, a little bit of citric and a little bit of malic, which is your clean, crisp kind of fruit acid. And this is this is winemaking right here. This is technique. This is style. This is winemaking, encouraging this wine to be fresh and bright and clean and crisp. So, second sip. Now that I've talked for a very long time, and I've probably worn the primer coat entirely off of my mouth, I'm going to go in for taste number 2. So that's really nice. As I said, again, very bright. You definitely get lemon. You get hints of lemon on there. You get a little bit of sort of clean peach. Again, you get those sort of delicate tropical fruit flavors. But this is just I can't describe this in any other way other than a bright, refreshing, and clean wine. This is a really lovely sort of almost palate cleanser. And it's incredibly drinkable. It's really nice. It's really easy to drink. It's only 12.4% alcohol, right? So considering that wines in Oliver and Osoyoos, we tend to get so much heat, they can easily push up into 13, 14, 15%, sometimes higher than that. Having a nice sort of 12.5% alcohol wine that you can drink a little bit casually, it would be absolutely perfect on a hot day. Very nice. There's actually a little hint of spice. There's a little hint of something spicy there, and also a little bit of a stoniness, like a minerality, which again I find very appealing and very intriguing. It is a little bit, if you're a consumer of international wines as well as BC wines, there's definitely something that's reminiscent of Chablis. Chablis being sort of the part of France where you get unoaked Chardonnay. You go to Burgundy if you want to get your oaked Chardonnay, your traditional oaked Chardonnay, but you go to Chablis to get something that's lighter, cleaner, a little more minerality to it. That's exactly what we're seeing right here. All right. I don't want to leave it. I don't want to move on. Nice wine. Red Horses. Oh, I was going to mention Red Horses. This is $20 plus tax. So this is a nice affordable bottle of wine. $20 plus tax. They do not make much of it because on the whole they're very limited production. They're only sorry, I'm looking down at my notes right here. 630 cases of wine being produced, which is nothing. And this is just one of their wines, which means that there's not going to be more than maybe 100 cases of this. So if you are interested in this wine, or if you've already had a bottle and you want to get some more, best to call up Eileen and get your hands on it now because it's really not going to last very long. Wine number 2. Old favorites here. This is from, like I said, Oliver Twist. Oliver Twist started up in 2006, and is run by Gina Harfman. And Gina's really lovely. If you haven't had the chance to meet her, then you're missing out because Gina's a really wonderful person, and she is I believe 4th generation grower here in the Okanagan, with coming from sort of a family of orchardists, and they say sometimes that her wines sort of take after the idea of this family tradition of growing fruit, because her wines are very bright, are very fruit forward, are very lively, little tiny bit of sweetness with them without ever being syrupy or oversweet. I think she really finely treads that line as the winemaker of making wines that have an appealing, palatable sweetness without being overly sweet. I do not like sweet wines myself, and yet I always really like the wines from Oliver Twist. Now this one right here, this is her unoaked Chardonnay, and actually this is very cute. On the back here, she's written for this particular vintage, Au Naturel. I don't know if you can see that. Au Naturel. And the reason that she has written that on the back of her wine is because this particular vintage, the 2018 vintage, was apparently just so incredibly tidy. It was such a beautiful fruit coming in off the field that she said she barely needed to do anything. Really, it was just a matter of staying out of the way and making sure that the grapes were able to just carry on forward and make a beautiful wine, which they absolutely have. They have a really interesting block. If you haven't been to Oliver Twist, it's over on the Black Sage Bench, further south than Red Horse's vineyard. They're over in the vicinity of Silver Sage. If you go across, I think it's Road 8, then Road 9, then you get right to them almost immediately, and they have this slope with sort of gravel and sand, but they have a patch of clay right in the middle of their vineyard, and that's where they grow the Chardonnay. And they attribute the clay to some of the flavor of the Chardonnay. There's something to do with the water retention of that clay, the ability to kind of desiccate the vines a little bit longer without having to water them quite as aggressively because the clay retains a little bit more moisture, and also the natural minerality and nutrition in that soil. It means that you get a really bright, really flavorful wine. And so when you have a smell of this, immediately there's a juiciness to it. There's this fantastic ripeness. I just realized I should say something before I even taste this wine anymore, and it is that they only have about maybe less than 20 cases of this particular wine left. The 2018 Chardonnay that we're tasting right now, it is currently for sale on their website or directly from their wine store or their tasting bar. But there's less than 20 cases, fewer than 20 cases, which means that if you want this wine, which you should want this wine because it's great, you better run to get it right now. They are offering free shipping on any order of 6 bottles or more. See, I'm just excited to taste it. I'm giddy smelling it. So immediately on the nose, I get really bright, really ripe peach, but I also get mango. I get other tropical fruit like papaya. There's sort of this silkiness, this juiciness on the nose. I mean, it smells like concentrate. It smells like concentrated juice. And once again, this is not necessarily what you expect from Chardonnay. A lot of people find Chardonnay intimidating or austere or almost a little bit snobbish with the hardness of the oak that you can sometimes see. And this is just so fun. This is so lively and so energetic. So let's have a taste here. Melon. Right away, I get sort of really ripe honeydew. Really ripe honeydew melon, that kind of green melon. More peach, almost a bit of berry in there. Really, again, bright, fun. Little hint of sweetness, but only just a hint. Not pushing it too far. Not making it overwhelming. I was talking with Sheila, the winery manager there today. She was telling me that this particular wine won gold at the All Canadian Wine Championships, and for their gold medal win, that entitled them to go on to sort of the next competition in the series, where it won double gold, so triple gold medal at the very least, and rightly so. I mean, beautiful wine, really, really lovely flavors, and I think this is a great illustration too of some of the ripeness and intensity of fruit that you can get from growing in such a beautiful place as this kind of Oliver Osoyoos Wine Country, right? The thing that distinguishes Oliver and Osoyoos from other growing regions within British Columbia is the sheer level of heat that we can get. And when you see the juiciness and the jamminess of this particular wine, you get it. You understand what that can actually mean to a finished wine. The amount of ripening that you can get in your fruit in the field translates to an intensity and a warmth of fruit that cannot be replicated in any other way. Mm. So, Oliver Twist Winery, like I said, they are currently offering free shipping on any order of 6 bottles or more, which is ludicrous. I still don't understand how wineries can offer free shipping, but they do, and so it's so worth ordering wine from them. But as well, if you are going to be out here in Oliver or Osoyoos, and obviously we're still, kind of warning people to be careful with traveling. But people are starting to come out, and the nice thing is that the wineries are starting to open up. A week ago, you would have come out here and just found a whole bunch of locked doors. But now wineries are waking up. Wineries are open, and Oliver Twist is one of them. They're open 7 days a week. I only have 5 fingers on this hand, but just imagine this plus 2 more. 7 days a week, Oliver Twist is open. It's not by appointment. You can just drop in and do a tasting, just like in the good old days. They do encourage when you come in, you immediately wash your hands before you go to the tasting bar. They have a limit on how many people can be in the tasting bar. These are all standard practices that you're going to wind up seeing all year at different wineries all across the province. But particularly right here, we're seeing limits on how many people can come in. And general guidelines and requests in terms of sanitation. So don't be surprised if you visit a winery and you are asked to wash your hands first, or if you're asked to immediately use hand sanitizer. All of these are just various precautions that allow us to be open, and we should all be happy that we are. So, Oliver Twist, come visit them in person or order online. Wonderful, wonderful, beautiful wine, and it is, let me just check, $22 before tax. So $22 for a triple gold medal winner. Not a bad deal. Not a bad deal at all. All right. Now, oh boy, this is exciting, isn't it? Some of you might not have seen this before. Some of you might not have seen one of these bottles before. This is from a very special winery. This is from CheckMate Artisanal Winery. And don't you just love this bottle? This fun, the stubby. It's almost like a pirate's rum bottle. And they have these very fun corks with the sort of the checkerboard pattern on them right there. So, anyways, this is from CheckMate Artisanal Winery. This is the brainchild of Anthony von Mandel, who is the founder of Mission Hill. And if you know a little bit about BC wine history, which you certainly should, then you may remember that back in 1994, I think I have that right. In 1994, let me check my notes. Yes, in 1994, Mission Hill won the illustrious award of having the quote-unquote best Chardonnay in the world. This was won at a prestigious London competition. And it was one of the really influential factors that put British Columbia on the map. And so Mission Hill is one of the very important pioneers in terms of British Columbia wine, and certainly in bringing us out there onto the globe. And so this right here, CheckMate, was created as a sort of artisanal, as the name Artisanal Winery implies, sort of passion project by Anthony von Mandel and some of his team to really double down and focus on the concept of the world's best Chardonnay. And so as a result, what they do at CheckMate is they operate just off of I think it's Road 13. I think they're on Road 13, just kind of around the corner from the Road 13 winery. And they have 8 different Chardonnays that they produce and 4 different Merlots. But they only do those 2 wines. They just do Merlot and they just do Chardonnay. But they do them with such exemplary skill that they really are, as I said, some of the world's best Chardonnay. And this right here is just one of many. This is the Fool's Mate. They all have these very fun chess-related names, like Bear's Move, and, well, I guess a bear is not a chess piece, but there's a story behind that one. And Fool's Mate, and Little Pawn. and their wines are magnificent. They're expertly crafted, but as well, they have the distinction of being the first table wines within Canada to ever receive a 100-point score. I'm going to give due credit to Incomeep Cellars for being the very first winery to hit 100 points in the kind of Wine Spectator 100-point scale that most critics use. Incomeep Cellars got 100 points for ice wine, which I believe was 2012. But that was the only wine that had received a 100-point score until, not this specifically one, but the Little Pond Chardonnay that is made by CheckMate got another 100-point score for their, I think it was the 2014 vintage. Correct me if I'm wrong there. And then they got it again for the next vintage, 2015. So that's two consecutive back-to-back wines that each got 100 points as a rating system, which has never before been done amongst still wines, not non-dessert wines. And so, anyways, they're doing an incredible job of creating wine, and I'm finally going to drink it. So, with this one right here, with the old Fool's Mate. With the Fool's Mate, what they do is they actually blend together the product from 5 different vineyards. They have 5 different vineyards that are spread between the Black Sage Bench, the Golden Mile, which is where they're located, and then down in Osoyoos. And they take grapes from all 5 of those locations, and they blend them together, again, very carefully. I talked about barrel selection earlier on, right? The ability for a winemaker to tuck away a bunch of wine into 30 different barrels and then choose exactly which barrels are going to go best together. This is a fantastic illustration of it, because this is also the only wine that we're going to drink tonight that has oak to it. And the reason that we're using this is because it uses oak in such a tasteful and such an effective way. I see in the comments that I've been just glancing down at, somebody said that it's the best Chardonnay they've ever tried, and they're not a Chardonnay drinker. That is exactly what you can see from a wine like this that is just so precisely crafted. Oak does not need to be scary or intimidating, and Chardonnay does not need to be scary or intimidating. There is no better way to discover that than by trying a bottle of CheckMate Chard. So, when I smell this, immediately there is complexity. I think that's one of the best ways to describe it. That's one of the best ways to describe the benefit to taking excellent fruit and then combining it together with very carefully cultivated barrel selection. What you get is complexity. You get layers and levels. Where you smell it and you're not just smelling one thing, you're smelling innumerable things. And as you continue smelling it, you keep smelling more. I opened this bottle. You may have seen I already took the cork out when I unwrapped my little birthday present. I uncorked this bottle about an hour ago because I wanted to let it get a little bit of air, and I tried a little bit then, and it's amazing how much it's changed just within the 1 hour. What I'm getting right now is a little bit of nuttiness. I'm getting sort of this sort of flaky pastry, a little bit of maybe brioche, a little bit of almost buttery, and a little bit of this sort of this wonderful kind of pastry baked good toastiness, right? Think perfect pie crust, or croissant, or like I said before, brioche. But it definitely has that nuttiness as well. Like marzipan. There's that kind of almondy marzipan tone to it. That hint of sweetness with that enticing, almost intoxicating nuttiness. So obviously, this is coming from the oak. But we're also getting fruit. We are getting kind of hints of baked peach in there. You're getting some lovely ripe fruit, some very well-developed fruit. It's also worth noting that this is 2014, right? This wine was not made yesterday. And so it was treated to, let me just check my notes. I believe that it was treated to 16 months. 16 months in oak barrel. And so it was harvested 2014. Went through 2015 into beginning of 2016 before it was taken out of oak. But we're not trying until now, 4 years later, which means that it's had some time in the bottle. And the time in the bottle has allowed the oak influence to cool down. Remember what I said here. You get flavor, and I'm definitely getting it. You get tannin, but you also get oxygen. And oxygen is important for helping to break down the tannin and integrate it into the flavor. And so the longer that you allow your oaked wines to sort of sit in the bottle, the more it's going to blend together and give you something that's cohesive. And this is a really fantastic illustration of that. All right, I'm going to taste it. I'm finally going to actually drink it. Mm. Mm. It's wonderful. So good. And I'm not talking because I'm still tasting things. It's it seems funny, but this is a wine that has an amazingly long-lasting finish. It's grippy. It sticks. And that's something that's obviously very encouraged by the use of oak barrels. This is something that naturally you can get a bit of this longevity just through natural fruit, but to really push it to this degree where I'm still tasting the wine now, it's still flavorful inside my mouth right now. To do that, you need to use something like oak because the tannin helps kind of reinforce and build this mid-palate. It helps extend, it helps push the wine forward, and it helps drag it out. And so this wine right here, I mean, this could not be a better food pairing wine because you take a sip of this, it gets on your tongue, and it just tastes and tastes and tastes. And that means that, I could take a bite of food right now, and it would mix together, it would merge with the taste of that on my tongue. Some wines are very fleeting. You taste it, it's there, and it's gone. But this is not even close. You would want to drink this fast because it's delicious, but you also don't need to. You can really take your time with it. You have a sip and you just bask in it for minutes afterwards. I don't even need to take another sip. I want to take another sip because it's real good, but I don't even need to. I'm choosing to, just for the sake of the live stream. God, it's so good. Fantastic. It doesn't hurt that 2014 was an absolutely phenomenal growing season in the South Okanagan. Just an absolutely beautiful year. Textbook, beautiful ripeness, very hot without being excessively hot. And so from this, you'd be getting beautiful levels of fruit development, ripeness, sugars burning into an appropriate level of alcohol. What's the alcohol in this again? This is 14.3% alcohol, right? And so we've tried a big range of alcohols right here. We've gone from 12.5. The Oliver Twist is 13.7, and then we get up here to 14.3. So we're sort of gradually escalating in terms of alcohol, and you get different benefits from the different sides of the scale. Having the lower end of alcohol makes the wine crisper, cleaner, brighter, lighter, fresher, and obviously a little easier to drink in prolonged sessions. But having that higher level of alcohol also helps reinforce texture because alcohol is viscous, it's thick, and so it enriches the wine, it bulks up the wine, makes it a little bit heftier. Oh, 3 minutes ago my wife said good night. Good night. I'm sure that's on behalf of my son who's 5 and probably shouldn't be watching this because it's about wine. It's not like he can escape it though. Absolutely incredible. A wonderful, amazing wine. And they are also offering complimentary shipping. Their tasting bar, the CheckMate tasting bar, is also currently open. right now by appointment. So call ahead if you know you're going to be coming out to the Okanagan for a visit. Give them a ring ahead of time and book in a time to come visit. The wine, the Fool's Mate right here, is, to be fair, it is $80, which is a little bit more than we often pay for wines down here in the South Okanagan. But even though when CheckMate first launched, I know everybody was all abuzz down here in the wine industry. They were saying, good grief, can you imagine? $80, basically prices ranging from $80 up to $125. This designation of ultra premium is kind of what we would call it right here. And prior to that, it was rare to see a wine coming out of British Columbia that would cost more than maybe 75 or $80. And so this was kind of a new thing when CheckMate brought it into our area. But I would say this, for those of you who are doubtful about the price, who hear that price tag and think, oh, well, that's not really for me. It is absolutely incredible the level of commitment and distinction that goes into the creation of these wines, and the taste of them is actually worth the price tag. I'm not just saying that because I've chosen to promote them tonight, but I'm saying it because I believe it. I'm not somebody who will pay more than I think a wine is worth. And there are wines, I would never name names. I try to be very neutral. There are wines where I've thought, no, that is excessive. This is an unreasonable markup, and it isn't worth it. And this is not one of those wines. I would say their entire Chardonnay line is absolutely worth every penny. And if you ever have the opportunity to buy even just one bottle, they ship in intervals of 3, so you can buy 3 bottles of wine from them. They'll ship it for free. It is something unlike anything else that you will ever try. It is truly beautiful, truly amazing, and again, absolutely worth it. So that's Chardonnay. That's our Chardonnay lineup. We've gone through unoaked, clean, bright, crisp, dry. We've gone unoaked, bright, fruity, flavorful, lively, fun. And we've gone through oaked, complex, long-lasting, nutty, intriguing, and sort of, well, I keep just wanting to say intriguing again, but I need to think of another, a synonym for it. Fascinating. There, how about that? Absolutely fascinating. It's thought-provoking. That's actually what I want to say. A very thought-provoking wine. But now I want to finish off this session by talking about the one red that we have today. And again, if we're talking about oaked wines, then we could have done a session with entirely reds. I could have brought you examples of, here's French oak versus American oak, here's light oak versus heavy oak. But here's the thing, you've tried those. You have tried these. Even if you don't know that you've tried them, you've tried them. And so I don't need to do that. What I need to do is bring you a bottle of Dolcetto from Moon Cursor. And this is a wine that will absolutely change your understanding of red wine can be. For one thing, Dolcetto is obviously a grape that you don't hear about every day. Moon Cursor says that there's only 2 wineries in all of British Columbia that produce Dolcetto. There's obviously not much of it in the Western world, period, and it is an Italian grape. Originally, in Italian, the word Dolcetto means a sweet little one, which is kind of a cute name for a wine. And this right here is, oh, looks beautiful. One of the very few red wines that you will find that does not have any oak to it. So I know that this is again hard for you to see. I'll hold it in front of the Oliver Osoyoos. No, you can't see, but it looks like grape juice. It's this bright, intense purple, absolutely beautiful, dazzling color. It's dark, Not too deep. I can still kind of, well, no, actually it's very, very deep. I can't really see through it. There's a little bit of light refracting through. But you may be surprised to know that this wine has only been macerated on the skins for 7 days. And it is already this dark. Just to give you the frame of reference, if you don't remember the class that I taught on whites and reds, the average red wine is going to be soaked on its skins for anywhere from 2 weeks to 4 weeks. You're going to see 14 days for your sort of Pinot Noirs, your light reds, and then you're going to see up to 25, 30, 32 days for your heavy reds like your Merlots, your Cab Sauves, your Syrahs sometimes, but particularly those Bordeaux varieties like Merlot and Cab Sauv. You're going to see long maceration times. And during the maceration period, you were absorbing color. Yes, every day that it's in there, it gets darker and darker and darker. You are also going to be absorbing flavor. You're going to get more and more influence of the taste. Think of it like steeping a cup of tea. And you're also going to be getting tannin. You're going to be getting more and more and more and more tannin. And so you're gradually coaxing the tannin out of the skins and into the wines that then you can press it off and you can have something that has the fortitude and density that you expect from a red wine. Well, this right here, the Dolcetto, it does not require that length of period. 7 days is all they do with this. And they do it carefully because Dolcetto stains like crazy. It is a dark, dark, dark grape. It's like feeding your kids blueberries. Like you just know, what it's going to look like afterwards. And that's kind of what Dolcetto does. It just stains everything that it comes in contact with. So what it does, or sorry, what they do at Mooncursor, they're not its, they're people. You've got these grapes are harvested as per usual in the fall. What they do is they harvest them in whole bunches. Okay, they sort through them in the vineyard. They bring in these whole bunches of grapes. They drop them into their tanks, and then they gently macerate them without doing a massive crush. They don't pulverize these grapes. A lot of grapes, you will mash them down into kind of a slurry, and then you'll allow it all to soak together. These are kind of whole bunch, sort of concentrated, and then very, very gently and carefully soaked for 7 days, during which time they do gentle pump overs. That's where you have a pump and you feed a hose out of the bottom of your tank and you pour juice back into the top of the tank so that you're circulating the juice. You're making sure that the top levels of the grapes do not dry out. They do that very carefully for 7 days, and then they very carefully, again, separate the juice from the remaining sort of grape skins and whatnot. And the result is an incredibly potent and flavorful wine that needed almost no encouragement, which is maybe one of the reasons why it typically does not also go into oak barrels. Dolcetto in Italy is not oaked. And it's designed as sort of a light, bright, fresh wine that you usually drink within the first couple of years. Mooncursor says the same thing, that you should drink this wine within the first 3 years, I believe they say. And it's because oak gives you more fortification. That tannin is going to prolong the shelf life of a wine. Longer maceration times with the skins are also going to prolong the shelf life. But this is a wine that does not need it because it's designed to be drinkable almost immediately. It doesn't require years to cool down into a point where you can appreciate it. It's appreciable right out of the gates. So let us appreciate it together. Let's have a smell. Right away, you get concentrated fruit. You get sort of jammy plum. You get like plum preserves. It smells like plums and cocoa powder. There's definitely sort of a dark chocolate tone to it there. So, fresh fruit, a little bit of jam, a little bit of chocolate. I mean, it smells absolutely delightful. Like it's just so incredibly enticing. And there's something so wonderful about smelling red wines. They always just have this concentration, right? This density to them. Mm. All right, let's have a taste. Give it some air. Smell. Sip. Mm. Mm. That's beautiful. Right away, you can see why they have to be so careful with the skins, because it has tannin. Like, you would think that 7 days of maceration would not be enough to instill enough tannin into this wine to really make a difference, but you feel that beautiful texture, that grippiness. This is why red wine drinkers like drinking red wine, because of that sensation, because of that feeling. That sort of that texture, that grip, and this wine has it in abundance, despite the fact that it's received almost no exposure to tannin elements. But it also combines that together with fruit. It has these lovely sort of dark cherry tones. Once again, you get more of this sort of earthy kind of graphite. Again, it's a bit like the cocoa. I'm getting at the cocoa, but it's not quite the same. It smells more like chocolate, tastes more earthy than that. But the fruit permeates through the entire thing. And this is one of the effects that you can get by leaving off the oak. The oak is going to change the expression of the wine. You're going to get something different naturally, just because you've added in so many additional elements when you oak a red wine. And oftentimes that is good, but sometimes it's a bit of a tragedy, because, well, let me just say this. I've worked in the wine industry for 10 years. I've worked with wine production. You know, I've seen 10 harvests of grapes. And when you initially press the grapes, when you initially harvest the grapes and press them, it's so bright, it's so fresh, and it has such an amazing flavor to it. And then you put it into oak barrels and you change it. And that is not a bad thing. Again, I have to reiterate that. But sometimes you do miss what you've lost. And this is a great way to see what you have changed away from. And we talked about this last session when we talked about rosé wines, that you can take a rosé made out of Merlot and you can use that to taste what Merlot tastes like before you make it into the final red wine that you were expecting. This just gets better with second tastings too. Juicier, even brighter. A little bit of licorice coming in there. I love licorice in wine. Any wine that tastes like fennel or aniseed or licorice, I mean, that always just scratches the itch for me. And I get that right there. Now, once again, I have to talk about temperature. Here, 15, 16 degrees Celsius. But this is another wine, very much like these unoaked Chardonnays here, like the Red Horses or the Oliver Twist, where you could chill it down. You could actually cool down the Dolcetto, and it tastes amazing. Red wine is not always something that you you think about having on a hot summer day, right? I think a bunch of people commented in the message comments here when I was tasting the Red Horses that this would be good on a hot day. And exactly, right? When you're thinking, let's sit out on the patio, let's have something refreshing, let's have something clean. You want something analogous to a Corona, right? You want something light and fresh. And so yes, you could do a white wine, but you can also do a really clean, unoaked red like this, chill it down, and my goodness, is that ever good. It's just like fresh fruit. It's like fresh berries. It's clean, it's crisp, it's vibrant. And yeah, I mean, I would say that that if you haven't tried that yet, you know, you should. And what can I say about Moon Cursor? For this right here, you can get access to this particular wine, the Dolcetto. Costs $25, which is an absolute steal for a wine of this quality. $25 plus tax. They are shipping this right now off of their website. You can go and you can go to the Moon Cursor website to order this direct. Like pretty much every BC winery, they're shipping like mad right now, and all of us really appreciate everybody who is ordering wine from us at this time. You know, we understand that it's difficult to get out here, and also, as I mentioned before earlier in this program, you weren't even able to get into the wineries more than a week ago. But Moon Cursor is one of the ones that is going to be opening up soon. You can order from them, or you can visit them in about a week. They're opening up Monday of next week. They're going to start to be open. And so you can come and you can visit Moon Cursor in person. It's gonna be by reservation only. So just like CheckMate, you're gonna want to call ahead. You're gonna want to book in a time. They're doing tastings once every hour. But the really nice thing about that, one of the benefits to the entire wine industry having to reevaluate how we do business after this whole COVID-19 thing has kind of broken out, is that I think you're going to be seeing a lot of wineries offering more involved, more engaged tastings. The idea of just going and lining up at a tasting bar and having somebody come pour you one wine and then move on and deal with the next customer and the next customer and the next customer and kind of tasting it on your own, you're not going to see much of that anymore. Instead, you're going to see a lot of more specified experiences. The team at Moon Cursor is so incredibly on point. Every single one of them is not only incredibly charming, but they're extremely knowledgeable as well. And this means that you're going to be able to book in for a tasting. You're going to be able to go in there and you're going to be able to spend half an hour of uninterrupted time with these people and get a very thorough experience, which is all that I ever ask for when I go to a tasting bar. I really just I look for the experience more than I even look for the wine, because I know I'm going to get the wine for these live tastings anyways. The other thing is that the associate winemaker Christian's been posting up on their website little snippet tasting videos. So if you like some of the things that I said about the Dolcetto and you want to hear what a professional said about it instead, you can go to the Moon Cursor website and you can click on the Dolcetto and you can watch a little 2-minute long video of the associate winemaker himself talking about this wine and about all their different wines, which I really recommend doing. This afternoon I went through and I actually watched all of them, and they're absolutely fantastic. Christian is good on camera, so. Well, I just want to drink this wine. So I suppose I'll sort of wrap things up here. I've been keeping an eye on the comments. I think that nothing has particularly been asked that I haven't really expressed. I do tend to talk a lot, and so usually just by law of averages, I will cover most of what anybody says. Oh, look at that! Christian just said thanks. Well, you're welcome, Christian. You're good on camera. But anyways, I would just say that if anybody has any other questions about any of the wines that I talked about today, or about the basic concept of oak in wine, or if anybody has any questions about winemaking in general, or things that they would like to see in future live stream tastings, please get in touch. My contact is moss@vinstitute.ca. And so you can contact moss@vinstitute.ca and you can ask me anything you want or make requests of what you would like to see. We are doing these live stream tastings, of course, every second week. So the next one you will see 2 weeks from today. Let's see, it's the 9th. 9 plus 14, 23. So on the 23rd, there must be another live stream. At least that's what basic arithmetic would tell me. And for that live stream tasting, we're going to be talking about sparkling wine, which is one of the most exciting topics to discuss. We're just going to do 3 wines for that one because I'm just gonna be talking friggin' so much during that. There is so much to talk about with sparkling wine, so I'm really excited about it. But as well, please listen to our podcast. I've been doing a podcast with this fancy microphone. Look at this thing. Isn't this amazing? Isn't that just a work of art? Anyways, I've been doing a podcast that we call Uncork the Sun with the Vinstitute Wine School. And in that podcast, we talk about a range of different topics. I delve in much more detail to what winemakers can do with oak. Recently, I've been doing a series on vineyard health and vineyard management, which personally I think is interesting. And if you listen back through the first 4 episodes, you will very clearly be able to pinpoint when I got a good microphone. It's very obvious. So thank you all very much for tuning in. As I said, listen to the podcast, come back in another 2 weeks, let us know, email me if you have any questions about anything, and until next time, I don't have anybody to clink glasses with, so everybody hold up your glass at home, everybody hold up your glass, all right, I'll wait, okay, there we go, okay, get your glass, hold it up, now I want you to just hold it out to your webcam, all right, we're gonna do this, so hold it out to your webcam, and